Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, your daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center, Kaustubha. Welcome to our show. This is our Srimad Bhagavatam show. This is where we read the Bhagavatam, the sacred literature of India, meant to excavate the spiritual self from the material world, something I sort of need on a regular basis. And we are at a very important place in the Bhagavatam. We're about to enter this new chapter 9 today, which I'm excited about. How are you doing, Kaustubha? Before I just ramble on, everything good?
Everything's good. I mean, everything's good on one hand, and of course, on the other hand, I'm
tragic.
It's sort of, yeah. It's getting that point where I'm beginning to hear about people that I know, even some dear devotees and so on that are in critical condition, even
Really?
Yeah. So that's there for sure.
Okay.
In the background, on a daily basis, more or less, I'm going on. I'm to be honest, I'm so thankful for this whole Wisdom of the Sages community here. Keeping us engaged here in the mornings, but also throughout the day in different ways.
Isn't it so easy just to go to the news app on your phone? It's so easy just to hit NPR, just the news app or whatever news app you listen to, and just go there. And then that becomes your focus and that becomes your reality. And that's all there is. And I can't control it, which makes it even worse because I started thinking, what can I control? And it gets really frustrating. And then I start to spin. But yeah, it is a little real. And I'm sort of happy to be a little isolated. And there is confusion, though. It's sort of like, when does this end? You can't get a straight answer. It gets a little frustrating.
Nobody knows the answer right now.
Yeah, no one really knows. Well, let's see if the Bhagavatam. Sometimes it's one of those things. You open a book and the book just like speaks to you. Let's see if the Bhagavatam does that to us today. This part of the Bhagavatam is the finishing prayers of Kunti. And Kunti is in a desperate situation too. Desperation happens once we get into the life. And some of us experience that at a young age. Sadly, sometimes in our early 20s or 30s, sometimes we have a midlife crisis. Sometimes we experience it in our old age. But the idea is that this is just part of having a material body. Is we get through some incredible pinch. What are we going to do now? And so the Bhagavatam deals with these sort of high pressure situations and shows the path that the Mahatmas or the great souls have taken. Kunti is one such a great soul. She's also a queen. So we wrapped up her prayers yesterday, and now Yudhisthira, who is the emperor, who won the war, so to speak, is lamenting on all the pain that went into this great battle, all the people he's lost. And even though he's a good person, he's saying there's no amount of pious things I can do to counteract all the horrible things that happen when you're in war. So we're going to talk a little bit about immediately what he says in this purport. Let's just dive right in, if it's okay with you.
Yep.
We'll start with our opening mantras. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Text 51. Chapter 8, Text 51. Canto 1. What did I say? Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Text 51. This is Yudhisthira speaking. Yudhisthira is Arjuna's older brother, in case you don't know. I have killed, he's saying, I've killed so many friends of women. Why does he say friends of women? What does that mean?
I think friends means like, it seems like it must mean like they're husbands of women.
Okay. Oh, now there's a lot of widows.
Yeah.
That's what it is. There's a lot of widows. And I have thus caused enmity to such an extent that it is not possible to undo it by material welfare work. There's this idea, even in Vedic teachings, that there's good activities and there's bad activities. There's good karma and there's V-karma, or bad karma we do. And we can counteract our V-karma with our good karma. And sort of a very cultured society like the Vedic society was, they knew all these like intricacies of counteracting bad karma. Now, we don't deal with this so much in bhakti. We just say, you perform a karma. For all your service, all your life, all your thoughts, all your actions, all your words are dedicated to Bhagavan. And because of that, we're not always trying to counteract some bad karma. We are, what was that? We are not counteracting some bad karma. We are just fully trying to focus on the service to the divine. That being said, he's in a material situation where he just got out of like a war. You know, we have like a material duties in this world, and Yudhisthira was executing his as an emperor. In the purport, these are some interesting words. The grihamedhis are those whose only business is to perform welfare work for the sake of material prosperity. So there's two words. Maybe Aravind, you can put these up on the board. We have this word grihamedhi and grihasta. And so if some of you are familiar with this word, grihasta means you have a griha, you have a home. And your home, your grihasta ashram, is like a sanctuary. You've created your home to be an ashram, and you feel very safe and contained in that ashram. There's lots of love within that ashram, love between the spouse, love between the children, and you've created it as your place of sanctuary from the crazy world. The grihamedhi, on the other hand, is their focus isn't as by the way, it's not just creating some type of peace in your house, because everybody, even some completely reckless, derelict or criminal will come home and feel safe in his house. It's not that. It's actually like a spiritual ashram, your home. There's a focus. Divinity is the focus of your home. And we create the ashram by what goes on in our house. It's things like the environment, from the way we cook, the way we decorate, the images you have on your walls create the consciousness of the family. The way we treat each other, right? Some of us grew up in households that were incredibly reckless or out of control or unstable. That all creates us. It all creates what I am today. And so my job, and most of everybody here on our Zoom channel, we have homes, we have families, and that is our job, is to create that home to be an ashram. Then of course the grihamedhi is, you have that home, but the home becomes a center. The word medhi is like from jealousy, where it's your family versus other families. And a lot of that is directed by the language, how you speak about other people, other families, other couples, this type of like gossipy nature, gossipy nature of what comes out of your mouth. It actually becomes toxic. Sometimes we don't do it, or we do it figuring just, well, we're just talking. And it bleeds into training the children how to speak. And we sort of have to guard against that. In Bhakti, we speak a lot about being above the pettiness of the material world, being above the petty gossip, the petty fault finding, being above that. If someone's got an issue with me, I'm not going to come back at them. That's petty. If I see someone else being petty and it drives me crazy, gets under my skin, I don't feed that. I back off from that. Anything else you want to say, Kaustubha, about griha or grihamedhi?
Well, griha means home. And, this is sometimes you bring this up and it's from our culture, it's a little hard to understand, but it's the idea is like grihamedhi. I believe medhi refers to like the kind of pole, like a central pole that you use for like, we don't see this in our culture very much, but like you might have like a bull or an ox that's like, they're going around that pole to grind something, like to generate the power to grind, but it means centered around the home, right? And so the home in this case would be seen as like the place of all material comforts, right? It's where I find my material comforts for eating, for sleeping, for sex, for these things. And that becomes my central focus in life. How will I get my material comforts? So a grihamedhi is a person that's just focused on my material comforts. And then
why can you say everything that I say in a very short sentence and make it sound so much better than what I just said in the long-winded 5 paragraphs?
No, but what you said was helpful because you took it to like the way that it kind of plays out commonly. So in some sense, the more toxic way that it plays out is this kind of getting involved in this kind of pettiness that absorbs our minds, And grihasta, we say grihasta ashrama, right? There are 4 ashramas. There's the brahmachari ashrama, which means like life as a student before marriage, a celibate, a celibate life of study and learning culture and learning wisdom and so on. And then grihasta.
It's like the opposite of how every like high school is in America. It's like, I'm like worried about like the prom, the snowball dance. Did you have a snowball dance?
I've never heard of that in my life.
It's like everything, instead of containment and pulling it all in, it's all about meeting girls and dating. And it's like, now I never understood like co-ed, like why would anybody have an all girls school or an all boys girls? I never got that. I was like, that would be so unfun. And now it like totally makes sense. How am I supposed to learn anything in school? Any class trip got nothing to do with the class trip. We went to Colonial Williamsburg. To me, it was all about what girl can I meet on that trip? What?
Who did you meet, Raghu, on that trip?
Just my whole, that was my whole meditation. That was my entire meditation on everything I did. I want a do-over. I want an Apple Z. What is it? Command Z, my life. Go back. I want to become that celibate student.
Yeah. But we say grihasta ashrama. So ashrama means like a shelter, some place that you can take shelter of, where you're in a sense kind of protected. And so our home, our griha, can be either the place that we're focused on finding material enjoyment, which, by the way, in today's world, in our Western world, is considered quite pious, actually, if it's just centered around your home, right? And not so many other things. But
that's like a win.
Yeah, I can be focused around finding material enjoyment in life. That can be my focus. Or my home can be transformed in such a way where it becomes an ashrama, where it protects me from my lower nature, where it's a place where dharma will kind of become further and further instilled. And so I mean, that's a whole subject about how that works, you know, like maybe we should someday just dedicate a class just to that, like focusing on, you know, how our home can become a place where we walk in there and it's not like, let me absorb myself in material comforts. And not that there's anything wrong with comfort, but in other words, if that becomes our focus, or does my home become a place where I get continual spiritual enrichment? And that's what grihasta ashram means as compared to grihamedhi. All right. Yeah.
Thank you. Let's go. You know, I'm going to skip the purport, the rest of the purport about the ashramedas and the. Is that okay?
Yeah. Well,
I just feel like it's not really relevant. That
gotcha.
It's not that relevant.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Sometimes we have to make those executive decisions. And this is the last verse, 52. As it is not possible to filter muddy water through mud or purify a wine-stained pot with wine, it is not possible to counteract the killing of men by sacrificing animals. So this is like these rituals where they would sacrifice an animal to undo some. By the way, in the sacrificing of the animals, it was a very mystical thing where the new animal would take birth. It wasn't just like a slaughterhouse of various animals, like you do see sometimes in like rituals of, you know. Have you ever seen a Durga Puja?
I've seen the aftermath.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Kali Puja.
Kali Puja, right?
Yeah.
I went to Kali Puja once in Bengal. It wasn't pretty.
No, it's really, I mean, it's horrible. The word that's used in the Shastras is ghastly.
It's ghastly.
Yeah, but let's just Prabhupada kind of addresses it right here in the beginning of this commentary. He says Ashrameda Ashrameda yagnas or Gomeda yagnas, sacrifices in which a horse or a bull is sacrificed, were not, of course, for the purpose of killing the animals. Lord Chaitanya said that such animals sacrificed on the altar of yagna were rejuvenated and a new life was given. Like you would see that happen before your eyes. You would see it take on the new body. By recitation.
In other words, don't try this at home.
Don't do it. It was just to prove the efficacy of the hymns of the Vedas. When you saw that the priest gave that old animal a new body, you're like, okay, this priest, he's got his act together. This is for real what's happening here. By recitation of the hymns of the Vedas in the proper way, certainly the performer gets relief from the reactions of sin. But in the case of such sacrifices improperly done under inexpert management, surely one has to become responsible for animal sacrifice. You become responsible for killing. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, there is no possibility of performing these kind of sacrifices perfectly for want of expert brahmanas who are able to conduct such. People can't do this nowadays. We don't have anybody that's capable. Maharaj Yudhishthira therefore gives a hint to performing sacrifices in the age of Kali. In the Kali Yuga, the only sacrifice recommended. And now let's think of the word sacrifices to make sacred, right? Sacrifice to make something sacred.
Well, it's nice to think. I never think of it like that. I always think of it like you give up something for something else.
Well,
sacrificing.
Yeah, it involves
like with Sankirtan. Like with Kirtan, it's considered the Sankirtan Yoga. I give up my nonsense speech, the stuff that always drools out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Right. I sacrifice that to add something of higher potency.
Yeah. So that's where this goes. That in the Kali Yuga, the only sacrifice recommended, and that means recommended in these sacred texts of yoga, is the Harinama Yagna, inaugurated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That means that by Kirtan, by chanting these holy names, we sacrifice our time, we sacrifice our words, we sacrifice our energy for the direct connection to that spiritual sound or direct connection to God. Let's get right down to the essence. We don't have any fancy priests that do these mystical things. We're not going to try. It's not even so important. Let's go right down to the essence and let's connect ourselves through the spiritual sound vibration. And it's a beautiful sacrifice. It's an easy sacrifice. It's one that us non-sophisticated, non-mystical people can do. And it's the most important one. So in
You know,
this age, when we're weak, we're meant to go right to the essence.
and in the same way, in those ancient days, the appropriate priest, that you would witness the animal rejuvenating that old animal. So it appears like they're killing, but the animal and everybody's in awe. We've had that experience. Probably everybody here has had that experience in a kirtan where it's just like, what is happening? We feel uplifted. We feel reborn. That kirtan is so powerful that we've walked out of there like, what just happened to me? And that is an important parallel I'm just picking up right now, that it's something that we experience. No one's got to preach it to us, so to speak. Kirtan is so powerful, and I think it's great that people are now adding kirtan so much to classes, and where I think a big thing that are part of us doing our the Super Soul Academy, which we do in January. I think this Kirtan Academy is going to become bigger and bigger, because I think it's a big part of the education that we got is to teach Kirtan, and to pull in the best teachers. So everybody's sort of trained up, whether they're musicians or not. It really makes no difference. It really has to do with the quality of your heart. And some of the best kirtans I've been in have nothing to do with the person being like this very slick singer. It's safe to say that some of the best kirtans we've been in is where people are just connected, and you can feel that. It didn't have to be fancy, didn't have to have millions of parts. They didn't have to like run their fingers up and down the harmonium. Super simple and connected makes the quality of the kirtan. It doesn't have to be this massive orchestra, etc. Or it could be, but it's really and it is nice when a person is a refined musician and has a heart of gold. But there's something special about people who are just focused in that service. And that's something that can be a little bit of everybody's service. And if you're new to it, we encourage you to at least hear them, and then like practice also.
Let's think about kirtan like that. In other words, what's being described is that in previous ages, that a king, like the leader of the society, would arrange a sacrifice, a public ceremony to kind of bring a sacred atmosphere. Sometimes this would involve the mystical demonstration of giving an old animal a new body. But the idea was that, hey, let's all get together and demonstrate our gratitude, our dependence, our connection with God. And let's make a big ceremony so that we could be doing so many other ceremonies. What are our ceremonies, and how do we gather in large groups in today's society? It's usually around sports. Or
right, go to a
around,
sports bar.
Huh?
Sports bar, politics, the UFC.
Yeah. It's generally around sports. It could be around politics during election seasons. It's often around musical concerts.
Music concert.
Yeah. So we get together for those reasons. But here is like, let's all get together for a spiritual purpose, and they would perform these rituals, and those rituals were meaningful. And this was the idea, it would bring everyone together for a spiritual purpose. And everyone would, and like kind of like what you're saying now, everyone would walk away feeling a sense of spiritual unity. Now, they're saying in this day and age, we don't have the priests that can accomplish these kind of mystical tasks. And we really need to go right to the very essence, because we're lazy, we're misguided, we're always disturbed. We need to get like right to the essence. And so therefore it said that this kirtan, and this is going to come throughout the Bhagavatam, the kirtan for this age is the sacrifice. And like you're saying, I've experienced it so many times, right? Where like and I liked what you're saying about like, what is the responsibility for a kirtan leader? The person that's leading the kirtan, the person that's singing that everyone responds to. First of all, it's nice that everybody responds, that like the entire group of people are making the music together. But there's one person that's leading it. And our nature is that if we're in that position, we are prone to the idea that let me do this for attention. Let me do this for fame. maybe let me do this for money. Let me do this to pick up girls. Let me do, maybe so
Sure.
many.
Why else would you be on stage if
Yeah,
not
that's
for any of those things?
right.
It's why
And
people
so,
want to become famous. It's why people want to start a band. It's why that's like the motivating factor in becoming a musician sometimes.
yeah.
Profit, distinction, adoration.
Right. And so then like we've been like, you and I have had this experience where like as young men, we were taken into like the heart of the tradition, like in a place like Vrindavan, where you could see like that, like for instance, sometimes you pass through these ladies' ashrams when you're just like, you're on a rickshaw, you're passing by some little unknown temple, or not even a temple, just like a little ashram, and they got like a painting of Radha, or like a poster of Radha and Krishna in a frame on an altar, and they are rocking out, and it's not even like they're super skilled, but the spirit in that kirtan is just like absolutely fantastic. Or you go to some other ashram and there's some old man it's like his voice is just like all raspy, and like he's like unskilled in a sense, but it's just like the spirit in that, you could feel it. Everyone can feel it. Everybody knows it. And you get a different idea of what kirtan is all about, that it's like this person's heart is being shared, the devotional part of their heart. And really what's most important, what they're trying to accomplish, is to get everyone on the same page. Hey, let's leave behind the past. Let's leave behind the future. Let's get deep into this moment right now. And let's all express the same thing, our love for God,
Hmm.
or our desire for love for God. Let's keep it right there. And if we can all get on that vibration together, we are going to walk out of this thing totally purified. We're going to feel good when it's happening. We're going to feel great walking away from it. We're going to feel more connected to each other. We're going to feel more connected to God. And like you were saying, it's tangible. You feel it.
It's tangible. And one thing that we like to do on pilgrimage, we go on pilgrimage to imbibe the mood of people who have that strong bhakti, who have that like fervent bhakti. And so we just enter into holy places, going to temples and stuff like that. And if you're unfamiliar with the culture of India, to go to a temple, it's not like, because it's different, because I grew up in a Catholic. So you go into a church and it's very sacred, and it's very quiet, and it's very grave, and you're very introspective. And even though these temples have that as well, there's also a festive, joyous, celebratory mood. And you go in, you might even go in with a little gravity, a little introspection. And then all of a sudden, some lady just starts going, "No, Bunky Bihari la," and like breaks into a song, and you lose your mind. And when you see that passion, then a bunch of other old ladies and a toothless man and one guy just playing some instrument you've never seen, starts breaking into like
toothless,
a ridiculous dance. People just break into some ridiculous dance where it's obviously they're not doing it to impress anybody. And it's like, wow, I want that. I want that type of joy. I mean, we were experiencing that in Jaipur and Jaipur is like, it's a very sophisticated city. There's businesses all around, but the main center of that city is the Govindaji temple. And people from the very early morning arati, they show up there sometimes in their business suits, ready to go to work, and they lose their mind. They just lose their material mind every morning. And I remember us saying to it, because we were roommating, we were saying to ourselves, like, what a way to wake up in the morning with that type of like joyous passion. I'm ready to take on the day. I'll take on my whole workload. I'll move mountains, because at noon during my lunch break, I'm going to come back and do the same thing. And then I'm going to go back to work again. And then after work, my family's going to meet me there too. And we're all going to be dancing here. And then we're going to wind it down at home, have dinner, and go to bed and do the whole thing. It's like, it makes life just joyous. It's so simple. It's so simple. Huh? And it's not like it's just like, let's have a party as, Rome is burning. It is like a deep philosophy that looks at the problems of life, but we've figured out a way how to stay connected with all the ups and downs and apply the philosophy to our good times and our bad times.
You know what I think of sometimes when I think of a temple? that a temple is more than this, but this is part of it. That Leo Tolstoy had a definition for the word art. And his definition was that when an artist has a particular emotion, and through their work of art, they express that emotion, and when the audience, through the work of art, experiences the same emotion as the artist, then that is called art.
Huh.
Okay. So in other words, even if you're the most talented sculptor or painter or something like that, you're not an artist until you're conveying your emotion through the work of art to the audience. And when that happens, that's called art, and nothing else is art. So, which is, to me, a very interesting definition. But taking that, understanding that the power of how one invests their devotion in different ways can go from one person through a another agent to another person. So when you walk into a temple, like particularly like this is easier to understand in terms of like these ancient temples, like in India, like you can walk into a temple, and first of all, the architecture. That an architect with devotion for God put their heart into creating an architectural atmosphere that would change your state of mind as you walked into it, right? And then within that temple, there's decoration. Someone decorated it, putting their artistic putting their devotion, investing their devotion in this artistic way. And when you've experienced that decoration, it also affects you. Their devotion is transferred to you in some way. And then there's someone singing a devotional song, right? Sitting down, maybe at a harmonium, singing a song. Now that song was written 500 years ago by some saint, where they invested their devotion in that song. And the person that's singing it right now is investing their devotion in that song, and that vibration is coming to your heart. And the decorations on the altar, and the sculpting of the forms on the altar, and the cooking, and there's something for all the senses. And in some places, in some temples, this energy has been invested in this place for centuries.
For centuries.
And more or less nothing else, like just that going on right here, deeper, that when you walk in there, you feel a sense of transformation. And that can be whether the temple's one of these grand architectural wonders that has been there for centuries, or even if it's like just some really simple closet that a couple people are like just kind of investing that kind of energy in. But you walk into that atmosphere and you feel transformed. And so going to the temple is not just something I need to do once a week because it's the pious thing to do. But I go there and I feel just like people approach art. People can understand. I approach it for a sense of what do they call it when you get transformed by art? Catharsis.
Catharsis.
That I feel transformed by this. By profoundly, distinctly, tangibly transformed by the atmosphere, by the ritual, by the association, by the music, by the whole thing. I'm getting, and if we're not getting that, we're not understanding it right. It's not being practiced right. We should feel that, we should feel that sense of transformation. That's what it's all about.
I wanted to mention also that the sacrificing what comes out of the mouth. We're going to sit down for an hour. I'm not going to do all my blabbing like I usually do. I'm going to dedicate it to singing. And the group of us in the room is also going to sacrifice that time. So there's a collective sacrifice. Then there is a personal sacrifice of the speech, which is our japa. Japa is on our beads, our malas, and where we chant the Maha Mantra one time on each bead. Now, if you've never experienced this, do an experiment. This should be what you have to pay to get on Patreon. You have to just pay with one japa, or that's the price. It costs one round a day to get on Patreon. Wouldn't that be cool?
How are you going to monitor that?
2 rounds, you get some like silver level, 16 rounds, platinum entrance. But the idea is everybody on our Zoom group, get some malas if you don't have them, and chant one round of the Maha Mantra. It might take you 15 minutes, whatever it takes, and try to do it in a place where you can really think like, what would you like from me in this life? How can I be of service? What is my offering in this life? What can I contribute in this very short life? What would you like from me today? And in that mood of offering yourself to the divine, powerful things happen. And it's like the hands of a clock. You can't see them moving, but they're moving, right? In the same way, this is affecting us deeply. You may not even realize it, but it's affecting us deeply. Step away from it after a month and see how it's changed, right? Just like, don't shave. If I don't shave for a month, it doesn't seem like my beard is growing. And I look at picture from day 1 and day 30, I got this big beard. So I can't notice the growing of the beard, but it's growing. And in the same way, we might not notice the effect of the japa, but we are committing from this time a day. This is my meditation. And you can do it anytime. You can do it walking down the street, etc. I like to do it outside in the forest because I like to chant a little louder. So if I'm public, it might sound like, who's this weirdo walking around talking to himself? That's happened before. Rest stops when I'm on tour, walking around the Starbucks rest stop on the side of the New York State Thruway. Blah, Krishna, Krishna. And everybody's looking at me like I'm a nutcase. Public place and chanting, but I like to do it privately, and I like to do it where I can do any volume I want. Some people are doing it while they're, watching the Zoom show right now. I can tell because they're mumbling, talking to themselves. They're possessed. I can't tell. They're either chanting or they're possessed, and a spirit is speaking through their body right now. But that if you make that experiment, you will have tangible results that we don't even have to tell you about. You'll tell us about them. So if you're not doing that, we encourage you to do it. And it can be also part of the sadhana. Sadhana, like we say in that second prayer, by regular attendance in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee. That chanting of the japa is rendering service to the pure devotee. Because what we're doing, we're offering our voice out. And instead of going out there with my voice like I usually do, this time I'm going in with that voice. And that is an order of the great masters. And that's one way to render service. And hearing the Bhagavatam on a regular basis.
This is good stuff you're pouring out here, Raghu. I'm taking this in. I'm inspired.
You know why it's good? It's not mine. Nothing. My
Don't
stuff
go
isn't
flipping
it on
me.
The Bhagavatam is talking. I'm just to the degree that I repeat the Bhagavatam, it's great stuff coming out of my mouth. This stuff, that's the great stuff.
I like the way that you're speaking about sacrificing the words that come out of the vibration that comes out of our mouth, turning that into a sacrifice, right? Purifying it, making it sacred. And I also like the way that you're tying it into like the experience of a temple, because again, like I think that the what happens due to our weaknesses, what happens around these institutions of hopefully spirituality is a lot of times we lose the essence of what it's all about.
We have to have that class, the benefits and the miseries of organized church. We went before we did the podcast. We had 3 days of just ripping apart institutions and what their benefits were and what their problems were. And it's good to like really analyze that. Maybe we should have institutionalized spirituality discussion.
Yeah. Okay. And I think it's not uncommon for a temple or a church or a synagogue or whatever to kind of lose its purpose and become, it can easily become like a place of, like you're saying, the same kind of petty stuff that might be in the home,
Politics, dogma.
Yeah. Where really, if there's people that kind of are kind of like connected with that essence, that are vibrating that in that place, then when you go there, you actually feel, and this to me this is real important. When I step through these doors, I'm a little bit more conscious of being the best me, right? Like this should uplift me. That you know what, I'm spending 23 hours out of the day out of this place. And the atmosphere is potentially dragging me places I don't want to go. I have to resist that. When I walk in here, this is all about being the best me. I feel naturally and spontaneously inspired to be the best me. And I want to speak the right words, and I want to behave in the right way. And if there's anything here that kind of challenges that potentially draws out my lower nature, I learn to tolerate it and try to always like respond in a higher way. And that's how I train myself to respond that way when I'm not in the temple, you know. But what you were saying also is reminding me of the Gita's austerity of speech, you know, how Krishna describes austerity of speech. And you speak on this subject so often. I think it's so important how what we say is so important. And Krishna gives some guidelines about how we can improve that. You'd like to hear that? There's a nice little commentary to it too. But this is Bhagavad-gita, chapter 17, text 15. Krishna says, austerity of speech, or you could say the sacrifice of speech, you know, how we make our speech sacred. Austerity of speech consists of speaking truthfully and beneficially. And so right there, you know, like you've already, you know, like
I've already shut down 90% of my conversation.
Yeah, right. It has to be truthful and it has to be beneficial. Is it actually helping the situation? What I'm saying is, does it benefit the person that's hearing it? What I'm saying right now, is it benefiting them, or is it just kind of like wasting both of our times? So austerity speech consists in speaking truthfully and beneficially, and in avoiding speech that offends, right? Also, one should also recite the Vedas regularly. So
this is the purport, or this is the commentary?
I'll read you the entire verse. Austerity of speech consists in speaking truthfully and beneficially, and in avoiding speech that offends. One should also recite the Vedas regularly. Okay. I thought we were done.
I jumped the gun.
You hit
Sorry.
the music. I was like, what? Admin is going on. So here's the commentary. It's one short paragraph by Srila Prabhupada. One should not speak in such a way to agitate the minds of others. We have a society built around trying to agitate minds.
Yeah,
right?
that's what we do. Radio is agitating minds, and
or like late night talk shows and stuff, right?
Agitating minds.
Yeah, so one should not speak in such a way to agitate the minds of others. Of course, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instruction of his student, but such a teacher should not speak to others who are not his students if it will agitate their minds. In other words, we all think that we got like a badge, you know, we got a star on our chest and we're responsible for sheriffing like everything, and you know, like putting everyone in their place, you know. But you know, if you have that relationship with someone, then you might say something that's gonna be a little hard to hear for someone if they've accepted you in that role and you have accepted that role. But we're not meant to walk around constantly correcting everything. This is penance as far as talking is concerned. Besides that, one should not talk nonsense. Right. That's okay. Well, there goes the other. There goes the
other 10%. That's why I do this Bhagavatam. It's 1 hour where I don't speak nonsense, and even that, you got to pull me back. Once I start getting into UFOs and past life regressions, you got to reel me in. I need at least 1 hour, just clean Bhagavatam.
Now here's another point that Prabhupada makes. One should, when speaking in spiritual circles, okay, now like let's say we're in the spiritual circle, right? You know, when speaking in spiritual circles, one's statements must be upheld by the scriptures. One should at once quote from scriptural authority to back up what he is saying.
Okay, now this sounds dogmatic to those who are sort of like new to this. Can you explain the difference? What, you just walking around quoting a book, some ancient book? How is that relevant to my life? And how do you know it's, you know, it's even the, right. How would you approach people with that type of doubt?
Okay. So within Indian philosophy, there's a term worth noting, and that's called pramana. And what pramana means, like literally pramana means like proof. Like, how do you back up what you're saying? If you're in a court of law, for instance, the pramana is the law books. You don't make your argument based on anything but that. everyone in the courtroom has agreed that this is going to be the authority that we use, and now make your argument based on that. And within Vedanta, right, within the whole culture that's in the yoga culture grows out of that. You could say the Hindu culture grows out of that, but that spiritual culture coming out of India, you know, particularly when someone identifies as a Vedantin, I have faith in these sacred texts. And so rather than depending on my whim or your whim or my speculation or your speculation, which is you're just going to get a million different ideas without sound foundation necessarily. When the two of us speak, then I speak, then we substantiate what we speak based on our understanding of these sacred texts. And if you and I have a disagreement, and then we can consult those texts and try to understand them. But that's based on the idea that we've seen that there's great wisdom here. We've seen that there's great benefit here. And so then therefore let's not in a egotistic way say, no, I've dreamt up something better. Or it's like, okay, you've made your statement. And what this does is it kind of protects us from any kind of charismatic guru figure that may drop into the scene.
Charismatic.
Not that there's anything wrong with charisma, but it's got to be more than personal charisma. That's the point, right?
Right. And we get lost and we don't know. And this is what the Bhagavatam is doing. It's developing that discernment. So when I'm not just falling in love with a guy with robes or a great beard, forgive me for all those people who have great beards out there. I'm not just falling in love with them, but they have to speak Bhagavatam. They have there's got to be that. I'm going to steal your whole thing about Pramanana. That was great. The analogy of the court of law.
Is your message connected with some solid foundation, or are you just making it up as you go and just coming up with stuff that just sounds fluffy and maybe it's what I want to hear,
right?
But it's not actually the truth. That's a lot of these.
It doesn't make me have to change my ways.
You don't have to change anything, just like, you get that stuff. And it's like, oh, it's like if you went to a doctor with a disease and they said, oh, you don't have to do anything. Oh, well, that's great. I thought I might have to take some bitter medicine. No. What a great doctor, it was a perfect doctor, I'm going to go back. But no, if the doctor's meant to give you the medicine, and sometimes the medicine's going to be a little bitter, sometimes it'll be a little hard to swallow. And so rather than, so herefore the Gita is telling us and so on, that we're meant that the teacher should substantiate what they're saying based on these sacred texts, so that you don't so people just aren't, and it happens all the time, right?
Kaustubha, another thing I wanted to mention before we forget is tonight I'm doing Sweet Baby Krishna, which is the wonderful. It's such a wonderful day to wind down your evening. I'm not saying this to sell me. I'm saying this to I use that analogy of the guy who goes to the temple in the evening, he winds everything down. It's such a nice way to wind down. If you think of what's out there on Netflix that people wind down their evening with, it's like some murderous show, some cop show, or some unsolved murder mystery, which is like everybody. That's all people watch is unsolved murder mysteries.
Children that kill.
It's horrible. So to read Krishna Lila, the pastimes of Krishna at night, is so nice way to. So forgive me if you're from Europe or other parts of the country that are not there at 8:00.
That's tonight.
Tonight we're doing that 8:00.
Okay, so I got to get the word out on Patreon.
Get the word out on Patreon. If you're not on our Patreon account, it's patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. And we're going to do that. And also, if I didn't mention that, to reach us, you can reach us at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com, especially if you have questions. Thursday is our question day. And there's been even talk about doing our weekends a little later, because the Californians are complaining. They want to be on the morning show, but they can't. It's too late. So anyway, Sweet Baby Krishna, it's also a chance, is not just in our japa and not just in our kirtan, but to hear the lila. See, this is what we were saying the other day. How do you actively fall in love? There's actually a process to fall in love. And in this world, you fall in love by hearing about a particular person you're in love with. You should see this. You should see this girl I met or this guy I met. He's so cool. And our friends are listening. They're saying, oh, it does sound really cool. So when we hear about the pastimes of Krishna, you start to fall in love. And that's why these Puranic stories are there, not just to tell us some fantasy story, and not just to sort of like disseminate little bits of knowledge or wisdom. And it's really just a curtain to expound the deeper philosophy. No, the pastimes themselves make you fall in love with the particular deity. There's nothing else like it, these Puranic stories. And they attract the mind, they engage the senses. And, truthfully, it's like story time. It's like story time. And there's something probably inherently within all of us that wants to hear a good story.
Well,
you know what I mean? What's the story? Tell me a good story. And to hear these stories of Krishna, or to read the Bhagavatam, where there's just story, and they're just saturated with deep philosophical truths, and they charm the mind. What a way to go to bed at night.
Well, you know what you're saying right now, Raghu, is it just connects right with the last few sentences of this commentary. All
Go.
right, you ready? It's perfect. Because so here Prabhupada says, one should at once quote from scriptural authority to back up what he is saying. Okay. Then he says, and at the same time, such talk should be very pleasurable to the ear, right? It's not like you're meant, like they call these people like Bible bashers or something, like, I'm bashing you over the head with my scripture, Right. We should back up what we say with Shastric reference, but we shouldn't just use that as an instrument of our own ego or our own, warped needs, but actually we should present it in such a way that it's pleasurable to the ear, right? At the same time, such talk should be very pleasurable to the ear. By such discussions, one may derive the highest benefit and elevate human society. There's a limitless stock of Vedic literature, and one should study this. This is called...
There's a limitless stock, isn't there? It's like a limitless stock. It's not like we have one sacred book. There's a limitless canons of literature.
Yeah. We've been going for 3 months now, and we're still, in the beginning of the first canto practically. So there's a limitless stock of Vedic literature, and one should study this. This is called penance of speech. So if you want to do this penance, if you want to do this sacrifice, if you want to make your time and your life sacred, tune into sacred sweet baby Krishna this evening with Raghunath, and you accomplish all that. It's pleasing to the ear. It's backed by Shastra and has a lot of good, important wisdom in it. It's fun. It's uplifting. It's educational. It's kid friendly. It's got it all, Raghu.
It's got it all.
Yeah.
I had something really important I wanted to say. Now I'm freaking freezing. Okay. So we didn't even get to Bhishma Dev.
We didn't. It's tomorrow then.
All right. Bhishma Dev is our hero. And we're about to find the great, so many good, I'm not going to even get into it. So many great stories with Bhishma. But this was a good theme, sacrificing our speech for higher speech. That's going to be our meditation today.
All right.
And the winding down of the day with sweet baby Krishna.
Where's the music? You queuing up the music 15 minutes ago and get the party started.
Thanks everybody for joining us.
There you go.
Here, it's going to come in heavy now. Whoop. There we go. Thanks everybody. You know what I wanted to get into? That's what I didn't. It's like Indian. If you grew up in an Indian family, the concept of a satsang. When we were monks, that we used to go visit Indian families' house, and we'd have a satsang at their house, and so many Indian families would come in America, and they'd make prasad. We'd sing kirtan. We'd give a class on the Gita. It's like a party. It's like a cultural party that lifts you very high. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow too.
Okay, we'll talk about the
It's
Rebels.
different than American parties.
Yeah.
It's different than American parties or your parents' get-togethers where they're playing poker, drinking liquor. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for everybody for joining us. This is the time of the show where we get to actually transcend our body. And it starts with this. It starts with this, and then it goes to this. Let's see. Thanks everybody for joining us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. If you like what we do and you haven't done it yet, this means so much, even though it seems so little. Go to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. It makes a difference in our ranking and gives us great public exposure. Thanks. Everybody can do that. Join us on Patreon, patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. Join our insanely spiritually possessed Patreon community and our unlimited message boards of food and recipes and kirtan. And thanks to everybody on Zoom. If you want to join our Zoom group, we've got a lot of members now. Even on a Saturday morning where you should be sleeping in, we had 100 people at 5 a.m. That's Wisdom of the Sages 108 at Gmail. Get Mara to give you our code to get in there. And right now it's Krishna karaoke. Thanks to everybody who joined us late. Alice from Bologna. Kirsten K from Germany. Geneva G. Tristram. Also, if you're on the message board, check out the notes taken by Katie Bell. Katie Bell posts notes of every class on the Discord message board on Patreon.
Greatly detailed notes.
Jai Shri Krishna Bolo Jai Radhe.